The Nintendo 3DS and its sister 2DS is one of the best handheld consoles with great games and a unique 3D stereoscopic display. But even better, you can now easily homebrew it using a fully software-based exploit method. So hack the console and then run any game you want from an SD card. So, let's hack a 3DS. Hi and welcome to Bytes and Bits. The Nintendo 3DS was one of the last foldable handheld DS consoles in the range from Nintendo. Released in 2011, it remained in production until 2020, with numerous models along the way, including the lower cost 2DS and one of these ones here, which is the larger XL variant. Now, as the platform matured, it got an upgrade in 2014 with the new model, featuring a more powerful processor, extra analog joystick, and other improvements. However, its unique selling point was the built-in, this top display here is a 3D stereoscopic display, and which you could create then 3D images, and you didn't need glasses for these. So not all games used this feature, but those that did were able to create some great effects. Now today you can pick up one of these on eBay for around about £100 to £150 depending on the model. But the best part of owning one is that it can very easily be hacked to install homebrew apps and features. So like the Wii, this is a purely software mod requiring only a standard SD card and a PC to manipulate the files. Now once the console has Homebrew installed, you can play any 3DS game that you want from your backup ROM file dumps. You can play DS, DSi games and Game Boy Advanced games from their backup files, and then you can also use the console as a retro gaming emulator to play a range of other systems such as the NES and Super NES and so on. So let's hack this 3DS. Now, first off, though, a really big thank you to Reece from bhl.co.uk for lending me his precious 3DS. So this is a really great looking Super Smash Bros. Special edition, and it is in great condition. And this is a 3DS XL model, one of the old variations. So just a big shout out to Reece and to the company he works for. They're one of my clients on my website design business. So if you are ever in need of a new boiler or any other sort of plumbing or home related hardware, please do check out their website at bhl.co.uk. And again, I'll put some links in the description down below. They do have some fantastic deals on a very, very big range of products. The very first thing we need to do is to identify what type of 3DS or 2DS console we have. So there are two main versions, the old version and the new version. So if you look at the rear of your device or the top if you've got a 2DS, you'll see the L and R bumper buttons. Now if there are two bumper buttons on either side, you've got a new device. You'll also see a smaller joystick just above the A, B, X, Y buttons on the new devices as well. So again, this gives you two ways of working out which one you have. And it's important you work this out, as the two versions do need different hack methods, especially at the first stage of the modding process. So as you can see here, I have an old version 3DS. So now that we've identified the type, we need to check to see if the console has already been modded. So with the device powered off, hold down the select button and turn the console on. Again, keep making sure that you keep that select button depressed. So if the unit opens up in the normal menu, then we are ready to run the mod. If, however, it boots into something else, some other menu system, then your device has already been modded, so you can just go ahead and start installing the apps. So, assuming that your unit isn't yet modded, we next need to get the current system version number. So go into the System Settings app, and then look for the number coming up in the bottom right corner of the top screen. And you'll need to make a note of this as we're going to need it in the next stage. So armed with our version number, we now need to head over to the 3DS Hacks Guide. And again, I'll put the links to these in the description down below. But if we head now down to the Select a Method section, you'll see here that it's asking us to say whether we have an old version or a new version, and then to type in our version number. So again, you will have a version number followed by a region code. So mine is actually this latest version, E, and I have my old 3DS. So when you click on the confirm button for that, it's going to then take you to a section for the hack relevant to your particular model. So if we go through there, my old version with the latest firmware, we're going to use this MSET9 hack to get us into boot 9 strap. Now if I go back again and if I click on the new 3DS version and then click confirm on there, you'll see that we're being taken across to a different hack. It'll go through the Super Skater hacks, but again, that will get us to being able to install boot 9 strap, and at that point the two methods will actually be identical. So if you are using a new version, just simply follow through the guide on here and it will talk you through how to install that and get everything up and running. But for me then, of course, I'm going to come back out here and come into my old version, click on that, and then I'm going to take you through this MSET9 hack. Now, whatever exploit you use, you'll need to have a suitable SD card ready. So for the old DS versions, you're going to need a standard SD card size. So if you're buying a micro SD card, make sure that it comes with an adapter. Storage size wise, I'd advise using at least a 64GB card, but you can use anything up to 2 terabytes. Now the larger the card you use will of course let you store more games and apps, but very large cards can start to slow down the system. So I tend to find that either 128GB or 256GB cards are quite a nice compromise. Now these cards do need to be formatted as FAT32 drives, so if you're using Windows you'll need a separate app to do this, as the Windows formatter will actually try to format it as either an XFAT or an NTFS file system, and these aren't going to work in your 3DS. So my preference here is to use the Minitools Partition Wizard, which is a free app that you can download from this website. Now once you've installed the app, open it up and insert your SD card into your PC. If you've been using it for a Raspberry Pi or something else, you may find that there are some extra partitions on the card. So I would advise either way, just make sure that we clean it first and delete all the partitions. We can then select the blank area and create a new partition that uses all of the available space. When we create that partition, we'll need to format it. So we need to format it as an FAT32. So for 64GB cards, you need to set the cluster size to 32KB. If you're using a larger card, then set that cluster size to 64KB. Again, this is important to make sure that it's compatible with your 3DS or 2DS. So once everything like that is set up, you can choose whatever volume label you want and then simply apply your changes, and the software will run through, clean the card, add a partition and then format it so it's all ready for use in our hack. So we're now ready to get set up for this MSET9 exploit. So first we need to download the software. So head across to this GitHub repository, and again I'll put links in the description down below. And we need to download the latest release version. So for me this was 1.2 at the time of creating this video. Now when you come to do this, it may be a higher version number, but whatever it is, we want to get the latest version and we want the release.zip package. So just make sure that you save that to a suitable folder on your hard drive. Now once it's downloaded, navigate to that zip file and then simply extract the contents of it into its own folder. Now inside that folder we'll find a number of files and other folders, and we're going to be using these in a second to actually run the exploit on our 3DS. Now the MSET9 exploit mod is actually written in a programming language called Python. and we need that to be installed on our PC. Now, if you've already got a version of Python 3 installed, then you're ready to go. So skip this next stage. If not, then head over to the python.org website. If you go to the download links, download the latest version 3 interpreter, then simply install that onto your computer. And once that's all ready, we are ready to run the exploit. So first, we need to turn our SD card into a 3DS drive. So just insert the card into the console, power it on, and then run the Me Maker application. Now, if you're using a freshly formatted SD card, you'll get a message telling you that it's adding some extra data. But we actually need to get the Me Maker app up and running, so if it doesn't start first time, just simply reselect it, and you should get some more messages about it creating some extra files before it goes into the actual app itself. Now, we don't need to go through the actual process of creating a Me, so just exit out of the app using the home button and power down the console. You can then take out the SD card, and we need to pop that back into our PC. We now need to copy all of the files that we extracted from our MSET9 download into the root folder on our SD card. Now, do make sure that you get the extracted files and folders and not the folder that you put them into, and make sure that they go into the root of the SD card and not inside any other folders that might be on there. Now we need to run the MSET9 app on our computer, but we need to run it from the root of our SD card. So in Windows, make sure that you're looking at the SD card contents in File Explorer and then double-click on the mset9.bat file. If you're a Mac user, you need to run the mset9.command file, and for Linux users, you're going to need to open up a terminal window on the root of your SD card and then run the command python3 mset.py, and that will execute the Python script. So once you've got that going, you should get a terminal window popping up, and it should give you 4 choices. So you need to select the option that matches your console model, so that's going to be either old or new, and then the firmware version number. Now, for most of us, we'll be running on the latest version of the software, so we'll be choosing either option 1 or 2, depending on an old or new console. So simply type in this number and press the return key. You should now see a new display showing your model and version choice with a new set of options. So make sure that that model and version number is correct, and then type 1 followed by the return key or enter key to run the sanity check. At this point, you should get a message saying that everything is okay with a full set of green ticks in the list. But if, like me, you get an error regarding the database being missing or malformed, we need to perform one more setup. And this is probably because we used a totally new SD card, so of course these databases haven't yet been set up. So press the enter to close the MSET9 app and take the SD card back to your 3DS and power it up. Then select the System Settings app, go into Data Management, Nintendo 3DS, and then Software. And you should see that it detects that the SD card information is corrupt, and it will give you the option to reset it. So click Reset, come out of the System Settings, and power down the console. And you can then take out the SD card because we need to put that back into our PC. So we now need to rerun this MSET9 batch file from the SD card a second time. And again, we're going to check we've got the right model and version number before we run option 1 to do the sanity checks. So this time you should get everything being fine and the system reporting that it's ready to go. Now, if you do still get an error, do come back to the guide and check the troubleshooting tips there. There are lots of helpful advice on how to fix any issues. But otherwise, take out the SD card and we're going to go back over to our console. So now make sure that your 3DS console is powered off and then insert your SD card. We now need to power on the console, but do not touch anything. For these next steps, you do need to follow me exactly. We'll be using the D-pad to navigate around and the A button to select options. But we need to pause at certain points in the process, so we're going to take it one button press at a time. So first of all then, use the D-pad to highlight the system settings icon, but do not select it yet. At this point, power off the console and let it power down. Wait for a few seconds and then power it back on again. The system settings icon should still be highlighted, so now press the A button to select it. You can now use the D-pad or your stylus again to select Data Management, followed by Nintendo 3DS, and then Extra Data. But at this point, stop. Do not press any buttons or touch the screen. So leave the console turned on and very carefully, making sure that you don't hit any buttons or the screen, remove the SD card. So your 3DS is going to complain that the SD card has been removed, but this is what we want. So just leave the console as it is without touching anything and pop your SD card back into your PC. So if your nerves are still holding out, we need to run this mset9 batch file. Select your model and version as before, but then on the next screen, we now want to select option 2 and press return. And this is going to inject the mset9 code into that SD card. And if once that's run, you should see a success message. So return to close the script. And now we're going to put the SD card back into the console. Again, we're going to make sure that we don't hit any buttons or touch the screen. Now, if all's gone to plan, the console should recognize the SD card being inserted and boot into Safe B9 installer. Now, if it does go wrong and you get a red screen or your 3DS gets stuck setting back up again, you'll need to come back into the guide again for some troubleshooting help. But hopefully, you'll now be looking at a screen prompting you for a series of key presses to install our custom firmware which is going to hack our system. So use the 3DS buttons to complete that sequence and then wait for it to complete the setup process. Now once that's ready, you should be able to press the A button to reboot the console. And this then should boot you into the Luma 3DS configuration menu. Now in Luma 3DS, there are a number of settings that you can use. Again, you can have a look at the screens here to see what's going on. But for the moment, we're just going to leave everything at its default state. So we can exit out of this by simply pressing the Start button, and that will save our current settings and reboot our console. So once it restarts, we should come back to what looks like the normal menu screen. But in fact, we're actually now running our hacked system software because we have completed the software mod on our 3DS. But there is one final step we have to now complete, which is to remove that mset9 code from our SD card. Now this is important as it can stop some games and apps from working if we leave it in place. So power down your 3DS and pop the SD card back into your PC. And as before, we need to run that mset9 script. So select your system and version again, but this time when we get to the next screen, we want option 3 to remove mset9. So once that's finished, we should get a success message. And from there, we can exit the script. We now need to put our SD card back into our console and we'll do a final check. So if you power on your 3DS, it should reboot into what looks like the normal home menu. And again, as before, this is actually Luma 3DS that we've booted into. So let's confirm that everything is all installed. So if we now power down our 3DS, and then we're going to hold down the select button while we power it back on again. So this will reboot it, but it should boot now into the Luma 3DS configuration menu. And this then just confirms that our Luma 3DS is all installed and we now have a fully modded 3DS console. So let's now start adding some software to make use of our new features. So some games and apps are going to need internet access. So if you haven't already, we need to get that set up. So head into your system settings app, and when that starts up, we need to go to the internet settings and then to connection settings. And then we want to set a new connection. We're going to do this manually. So we need to search for some access points. And as it's scanning, it should then pick up your Wi-Fi signal. So once that pops up, just select your Wi-Fi signal, enter your credentials, and then OK that. And once that's all been accepted, the system should perform a network test just to make sure that it can actually connect to the internet. And if that all goes through OK, your 3DS is now connected to your Wi-Fi network. So just simply close down the System Settings app, and that should take you back then to your menu. So the first bits of software we're going to install are really some helper applications and launchers, and also some backup software, because we do need to make a backup of our system in case we have any problems down the line. So we're working from the finalizing setup page on the 3D Hacks guide. So if you head across there, there's a couple of downloads we need. So it does tell you which applications are going to be installed during this set of downloads, and you can have a look through those. But let's come down to the actual files themselves. Now, there are two files that we need. Both of these we're going to copy straight onto our SD card for our 3DS. So make sure that that is put into your computer. So the first one then is this finalize.romfs. So if we click on that, it should trigger a download. So we need to go on to our SD card, and mine is down here. And that needs to go into the root of our SD card. So I'm not inside any folder, I'm directly on the root, and I'm going to save it in there. The finalize helper.firm file, that needs to go into a new folder. So we're going to download that. And that needs to come inside our Luma folder. And then we need to create a new folder called payloads. Now make sure that you get the spelling of this correct, otherwise it's not going to work. If you already have that folder in there, then just put this file inside that folder. So we need to come inside that folder, and that's where we're going to save our finalize helper.firm file. So let's save that in there. Okay, so that's our software downloaded. Let's jump on to our 3DS and install that. So with the SD card inserted, power up the console and open up the System Settings app. In Other Settings, find and select the System Update function and select that. Now this will make sure that your system is fully updated, so you'll either see it updating or it will tell you that it's already up to date. We now need to use something called the Rosalina menu, and this is going to let us perform some backup functions and other system functions. So to get into Rosalina, you need to simply hold down the left shoulder button, the D-pad down button, and then press select, and that should open up our menu. So look for the miscellaneous options selection and select that. And then inside there, select dump DSP firmware. And this is going to make a copy of our sound system firmware, because some of the other applications will need access to this file. So once that's done, press the B button to continue. Next, we need to select the nullify user time offset function, and then press B when that's complete. B again will take us back to the Rosalina menu, and we now need to reboot the system to get those changes to take effect. So we're now going to install the software that we just downloaded, so we need to power off the console. Once that's powered down, we're going to hold down our start button, so not the select button, this is the start button, and power on again. Now this should drop us into the finalizing setup helper, and that will copy a few files across and then drop us into something called God Mode 9. Now if your system doesn't automatically start this finalize helper, you may end up with a small menu on the screen, so just select it from that menu and click A to run it, and that should take you back to where we are now. So the system should now be asking you to back up some essential files. And I apologize for the reflections here, it was hard to get it to actually register this screen. So just press the A button to back up those files, and then A to continue again. And if the system does ask you then to set the date and time, just go ahead and do that by following the instructions it gives you. But we're now ready to actually run a script to install our new software. So you now need to press the Home button, which will bring up the action menu for God Mode 9. And from that, use your D-pad to select the scripts option, and then we select the Finalize script. So this will start a series of actions to back up the 3DS and install our Homebrew system. So simply follow the instructions on the bottom screen, and at certain points it will need you to authorize some actions, so just use the A button to allow these next steps. When it gets to the system NAND functions, it is going to ask you for a series of button presses to authorize that. So just press the buttons on the console that match your particular code, and then it will then trigger the actual NAND backup process. And this is going to take a little bit of time, so just let that run through. Eventually that script will then complete, and at this point it's simply going to ask you to press the A button, and that will then power down your console. So we now need to take the SD card back out of the 3DS and pop that back in our PC. So if you open up the SD card, you'll find a GM9 folder. If we go in there, there's a backups folder, and inside that you should now find 3 files. So we have 2 system NAND backup files, and then a unique files on your console backup. And these 3 files together form a complete backup of the state of your system as it is at the moment. So if you ever do have an issue with your hardware, or you brick your console, then these files will help you recover that. So it's very important that we make a very safe backup of these. So the easiest way to do that is to simply back up the whole folder. So if I copy that and drag it across into my backup folder, so I'm creating a backup here for this particular console. So if I copy the files across to here, so I now have in my backup area, I have my backups folder. If I rename this now and date it, so if I date this as 2024 1704, so I now know when this backup relates to, because what we can do, as you modify your console further, change things around and so on, you may well want to back it up at certain points in the future to save that state, so you don't have to go back and install lots of other software. So I would suggest you do that, and gradually you'll build up a series of backups here, which will cover your console as it progresses. Now, once we're happy that we've got that backed up, and I've actually backed this up to my cloud storage, so that will, of course, you can see here that is now being uploaded into my OneDrive account so that it's kept safe there as well. We can now go back onto our SD card. So the backup's inside here. As you can see, that takes up about 1 GB worth of data. So we can actually now, once we've made sure that we have securely backed those up, we can actually delete those. And that will then give us a bit more extra space back on our SD card, because we don't actually need them on there. So that's everything now complete as regards getting our 3DS all set up, all backed up, and having our base code on there. So let's now start moving on to the important bit, which is the games. If we now pop the SD card back in the console and power up, we should get some nice presents sitting on the home menu, and we need to click on these to activate them. So if we go through them, you should have an enemy, which is a custom theme manager for your menu system, and this basically lets you change the look of your 3DS screen by adding new colours and graphics from a range of pre-made downloadable themes, or you can actually create your own if you want to. Checkpoint then is a save game manager that helps you track and keep and organise your save game files. FBI then is one of the most important homebrew apps that we're going to have, and this is the one that's going to let us use our ROM backup files to install and play our 3DS games. It will also allow us to install a whole range of homebrew apps using the standard .cia file format, but we'll talk more about this in a second. FTPD is an FTP server for the 3DS. With this, you don't need to take out the SD card to be able to transfer files to your machine. You can simply connect over your Wi-Fi network using an FTP client. The Homebrew Launcher app then is another app that we're going to be using a lot, and this holds references to all of our Homebrew software and allows us to launch them. But again, we'll talk more about this in a second. And the final app then is this Universal Updater. And this is basically a Homebrew app store, allowing us to download and install other Homebrew content without having to use a PC and transfer files onto the SD card. So again, a very useful piece of software to have on our 3DS. So with our base software all unlocked, let's get onto the actual games. So any original cartridge will of course just play as normal. Plug it in and off you go. But these cartridges are getting old, and it's best to try and preserve them, and pulling them in and out is eventually going to destroy them. So with our hacked 3DS, we can now use backup files to install our games onto the SD card. Now I'm not going to cover how to make backup copies of the actual cartridges in this video, but so I'm going to assume that you've already got hold of some game files. Now of course there are websites that will allow you to download games, but do please check out my video on copyright to make sure that you're staying on the right side of the law in your region. Now game files will usually be in one of two formats. .3ds files are decrypted ROM dumps that you can usually use in an emulator such as Citra, but our 3DS console actually isn't able to use these directly. What we need are .cia files, which our new FBI app, and so now you understand why they called it FBI app, that then is able to install these files onto our system. So once the game is installed, the executable game files will actually be copied onto our SD card, and the actual .cia file, which is really just an installation file, will no longer be needed. So all we need to do is to take our .cia files. I'm now going to create a folder on my 3DS SD card, and I'm just going to call that CIAs or CIAS. And then I'm just simply going to put my CIA files into that folder. And once that's finished copying the files, I'm going to take the SD card, pop it back into my 3DS console, and power it on. So once that's ready, we just need to go and find our FBI app and run that. So make sure we open that up. And once that comes up, it should list out our 3DS storage areas. So we want to select our SD card because that's where we've saved our CIA files. And then find the folder where we've put them, so the CIAS folder. And inside there we'll find a list of our games. So we now can just select one. And once we select it, it will give us a number of options. Again, we can see that we have a set of buttons down the bottom to tell us what they do. So we'll just select it with the A button. And we can now either install that file, or we can install the CIA file and delete it. And what we'd be doing there is the CIA file itself, as we said, is the installation media. So once we have installed the game, we need to get rid of that file to just free up some more space on our SD card. So FBI will actually do that automatically for it if you want it to. But I'm just going to press the B here, because we can go through them individually. But if I select the current directory and press A on that, you can see that we can now install everything in that folder in one go. So that's what I'm going to do. So I'm going to install everything in that folder and then get it to automatically delete all of my installation files. Now this process is going to take a bit of time. You can see that we do have an estimated time at the bottom there of 12 minutes, but that is just for the current file. So this first file, the Fire Emblem Awakening, is going to take about 12.5 minutes to install that. And again, you can see there I've got 11 games that I'm installing. So again, this is quite a big file. A lot of the others will be a lot faster than that, but we are looking at a good sort of 45 minutes to an hour worth of installing here. So I'm just going to let that run, and I will see you on the other side. So once everything's installed, we can simply press the A button to confirm that. And we can now get out of FBI. We have to press the B button to get back up to the main menu, and then press the Start button to exit. And that should take us back to our home screen. And we should now have some new software popping up. And of course, these are our games. So we can simply go through and unwrap each of our games. So you can see here, each of those games is coming up then with this nice title page and so on. So if I go through and unwrap all of those, all of these games are all fully installed now and ready to run. So if I try this one here, which is Mario Kart, I can then open that game. Again, this is running as if it was installed properly as a cartridge in the back of the machine, and we do have full access to all of the title updates. So again, if you want to, you can just simply install those title updates as we're going. And once that's updated, we should now be able to go and start the actual game itself. So I'm just going to skip ahead here so we can actually get into the game. And there we have Mario Kart all up and running on our 3DS, but running now from our installed CIA file, running from our SD card. And really, that's all there is to installing one of your backup files as a running game from the SD card. Just copy across the CIA file, boot up FBI, install it, and you're ready to go. So that's pretty much it for our 3DS and 2DS. It's fully homebrewed, and you now know how to install games from your backup files using that FBI app. But this is only the start of what you can do with this device. So over the next few videos, I'll be showing you how you can play DS and Game Boy Advance games, emulate other consoles like the NES and Super NES, and a whole host of other great homebrew apps. So please make sure that you like this video, and do make sure that you subscribe to the channel for more gaming, modding, making and coding episodes. Have fun playing with your 3DS, and bye for now. For more games programming, electronics projects and retro gaming, please make sure you like this video, subscribe to my YouTube channel and visit my website.